The Whisper of the Garden. In the small town of Everbrook, nestled between rolling hills and an ancient forest, there was a story that every child knew. It was told by grandmothers and mothers, passed down through the generations, always with a sense of mystery and awe. They spoke of the Midnight Garden, a secret place hidden deep within the heart of the forest, where flowers bloomed with magic and the trees whispered ancient secrets to those brave enough to listen. Lily, a young girl of 13, had always been intrigued by these stories, especially the ones told by her grandmother Agatha. Agatha was an elderly woman with silver hair and a quiet, knowing smile, her eyes twinkling like stars when she spoke of the garden. "The Midnight Garden is not just a place, my dear," she would say, her voice soft and filled with wonder. "It is a living, breathing entity, full of magic and mystery. It only appears at midnight, and only for those who are meant to find it." Lily had heard these tales countless times, but she never fully believed them. After all, the stories were so fantastical, so out of reach, that they seemed like nothing more than childhood fantasies. But there was something in the way her grandmother spoke about it, something in the way her eyes seemed to light up when she mentioned the garden, that made Lily wonder. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the stars began to twinkle in the sky, Lily found herself standing at the edge of the forest. The air was cool and crisp, the leaves rustling softly in the breeze. Her grandmother had told her to stay close to home, but tonight, a feeling in the pit of her stomach urged her to wander. She had heard the whispers again, the faint, almost imperceptible sounds that only came on nights like this. They called to her, beckoning her into the woods. And so, despite the warnings, Lily stepped forward, her feet crunching on the dry leaves beneath her. The moon was full, casting an ethereal glow over the forest. It seemed to breathe, alive with the hum of unseen creatures and the rustling of the wind through the trees. Lily's heart raced with excitement and fear as she walked deeper into the forest. She didn't know exactly why she was here, but something, some force, was pulling her forward. As the minutes passed, Lily's surroundings began to change. The trees grew thicker, their trunks twisting in unnatural ways, and the air grew still, almost too still. Then she saw it. Through a break in the trees, there was a soft, glowing light. It was faint at first, but it grew brighter as she approached, illuminating the dark forest around her. Lily's breath caught in her throat as she stepped forward, the light guiding her every movement. Before her, nestled within a grove of ancient oaks, was the Midnight Garden. The flowers shimmered in the moonlight, their petals glowing softly in shades of violet, blue, and silver. The trees towered above her, their branches reaching high into the night sky, their leaves rustling in a language Lily couldn't understand. The air was thick with magic, and for the first time in her life, Lily felt as though she had stepped into a dream made real. Her grandmother's voice echoed in her mind. "The Midnight Garden is not a place to be found. It is a place to be revealed to those who are worthy." Lily hesitated for a moment, her heart pounding in her chest. She had heard the stories, but this was no longer a story. This was real. She had found the garden, and now she had to face whatever lay ahead. As she stepped into the garden, the air around her seemed to hum with energy. The flowers turned toward her, as if sensing her presence, their petals opening wider, revealing their glowing cores. The ground beneath her feet felt soft, almost alive, as though the earth itself was welcoming her. Lily wandered deeper into the garden, her eyes wide with awe. She passed by flowers that seemed to whisper secrets, trees that seemed to watch her with ancient eyes, and vines that twined around each other in intricate patterns. It was as if the garden had a life of its own, a consciousness that was aware of her every movement. Then she heard a sound, a soft melodic humming that seemed to come from the very heart of the garden. It was a beautiful sound, soothing and peaceful, and Lily felt drawn to it. Following the sound, she came to a clearing in the center of the garden. There, in the middle of the clearing, stood a single flower unlike any she had ever seen before. It was a moonflower, its petals shimmering silver in the moonlight, glowing with an otherworldly light. The flower seemed to pulse with energy, as though it was alive, and Lily felt an overwhelming urge to approach it. As she knelt down to touch the flower, a voice echoed in her mind, a voice that was both familiar and foreign, ancient and young. "You have found the garden," the voice said, soft yet powerful. "But the garden is not the only thing that waits for you. You must prove your worth, Lily. Only then will you be able to unlock the garden's true magic." Lily's heart raced. She knew that this was just the beginning, that her journey had only just started, but she was ready. The Midnight Garden had chosen her, and she would uncover its secrets, no matter the cost. The Midnight Garden Lily's hand hovered above the moonflower, its petals gleaming with a light that felt as though it was calling to her, urging her to touch it. Her heart beat faster in her chest, the weight of the mysterious voice still lingering in her mind. She knew this was only the beginning. There was more to discover, more to prove. As her fingers brushed the delicate petals, the air around her shifted. The ground trembled lightly, and the flowers around her began to sway, even though there was no breeze. Suddenly, the moonflower began to glow brighter, and the once quiet garden filled with the soft hum of an ancient melody, as if the garden itself had come alive. A figure appeared in the center of the clearing. It was tall and elegant, with long flowing robes made of intertwining vines and flowers, their colors shifting in the moonlight. Its face was hidden by a mask, but the voice that followed was unmistakably the same one that had spoken to her earlier. "To unlock the garden's magic, you must first pass the trials," the figure said. "Only then will the true power of the Midnight Garden be revealed to you." Lily's stomach twisted with uncertainty. The stories never mentioned trials, only beauty and magic. But the figure's presence was not threatening. Rather, it was peaceful and regal, as if it was simply fulfilling an ancient task. "The trials are not of strength," the figure continued. "They test the heart, the soul, and the mind. Each trial will teach you something about yourself, something that will guide you in the world beyond this place. Are you ready?" Lily swallowed her fear and nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm ready." The figure raised its arms, and the garden around Lily shifted again. The ground beneath her feet melted away, revealing a vast, shimmering lake. The water was still, reflecting the stars above in a perfect mirror. But in the distance, Lily could see a small boat gently drifting toward her. "Your first trial is to cross this lake," the figure said. "But it is not just the water you must navigate. There is a part of you that will try to pull you under. Trust your heart, and you will find your way." Lily hesitated for only a moment before stepping into the boat. The gentle sway of the water felt oddly comforting, but as she pushed away from the shore, she felt a deep pull in her chest, as though something beneath the surface was calling her name. At first, the lake seemed peaceful, the water smooth and calm. But as Lily paddled farther, the water around her began to shift. The moonlight that had once illuminated the path began to dim, replaced by shadows that seemed to move in the depths. The surface rippled, and Lily's heart quickened. Her mind raced with thoughts of danger, and fear began to creep in. Suddenly, the voice echoed again, this time softer, but still guiding. "Trust your heart, Lily." Lily took a deep breath, closing her eyes for a moment. She could feel the cold water brushing against the boat, the whispers of the wind, but beneath it all, she could also hear her own heartbeat, steady and strong. The fear began to fade as she remembered the stories her grandmother told her, the stories of courage, hope, and purity. She wasn't alone. The garden had chosen her, and she was ready. Opening her eyes, Lily focused on the shimmering stars above, letting them guide her rather than the shadows beneath. She could feel the boat moving forward, no longer drawn to the dark depths. Slowly, the lake's surface calmed, and the boat drifted steadily toward the far shore. As the boat glided onto solid ground, Lily stepped out, her legs a little shaky from the emotional journey. She turned around to look back at the lake, but the water had already returned to its calm state, as though it had never been disturbed. The garden once again fell silent, its soft hum fading into the night. The figure stood waiting for her at the edge of the shore, its mask still obscuring its face, but Lily could feel its gaze on her. "You have passed the first trial," the figure said, its voice filled with approval. "You trusted yourself, and that trust will carry you forward." Lily's heart swelled with pride, but she knew there was more to come. She had crossed the lake, but the trials were far from over. As the figure turned, the garden shifted once more. This time, the path before her was filled with towering trees whose branches arched high above, creating a canopy that blocked out the stars. The air was thick with a strange, almost otherworldly fragrance, and Lily could hear soft footsteps, like the rustle of leaves, but not from any wind. "You must now face the second trial," the figure intoned. "This is a trial of the soul. It is not the darkness of the night you must fear, but the darkness within." Lily's pulse quickened as the path before her seemed to narrow, the trees closing in, casting long shadows that stretched toward her. The silence around her grew oppressive, and she began to feel something stir deep within her, a fear she hadn't known was there, a doubt she hadn't realized she carried. Suddenly, the trees parted, revealing a figure standing at the center of the path. It was a shadowy form, indistinct and vague, but as it stepped forward, Lily recognized it. It was her. Her own face, but twisted with sadness and fear, stared back at her. The figure spoke in her own voice, whispering words that sent a shiver down her spine. "You think you are brave, Lily," it said, "but you are nothing more than a frightened little girl. You are not worthy of the garden's magic. You are not strong enough to save it." Lily's heart ached as the words hit her, but she forced herself to stand tall. She had come this far, and she wasn't going to let her fears stop her now. With a deep breath, she spoke aloud. "I am not afraid of you." The shadow flickered, its form shifting as if uncertain of what to do. But Lily took a step forward, her voice growing stronger with each word. "I have faced my fear," she said, "and I will not let it define me. I am stronger than this." As she spoke, the shadow began to dissolve, its form fading into the air like mist. The path ahead cleared, and the trees opened up once more. "You have passed the second trial," the figure said, its voice softer now, almost warm. "You have faced your inner darkness and overcome it. Only those who can conquer themselves can unlock the garden's true power." Lily took a deep breath, the weight of the trial still lingering in her chest, but she pressed forward. She was ready for whatever came next. With each trial, she was learning more about herself, discovering strengths she never knew she had. Lily walked deeper into the garden, her mind still reeling from the trials she had faced. Each step felt heavier than the last, but with each trial, she had grown, stronger, wiser, and more attuned to the mysteries of the garden. The soft hum of the garden seemed to echo in her chest, as though the very heart of the garden was alive within her. Ahead, the path opened into a grand clearing, unlike any place she had seen before. In the center stood a magnificent tree, its trunk wide and ancient, its roots sprawling deep into the earth. The branches stretched high into the sky, their leaves shimmering like silver in the moonlight, casting a soft, ethereal glow on the surroundings. The air here felt thick with magic, and Lily could feel the power radiating from the tree, as if it were the very heart of the midnight garden. the figure now standing beside her, spoke softly. This is the final trial. You must prove the purity of your heart. It is not enough to be brave or wise or strong. You must act out of love and selflessness, for only then will the true magic of the garden be revealed. Lily stepped forward, her heart racing. She had already faced the lake and the shadow of doubt within herself. Now, the garden was asking her to give something of herself, a test that would require everything she had learned along her journey. In front of her, a small, delicate creature stepped into the clearing. It was a fox, its fur a soft, shimmering silver, its eyes bright and intelligent. The creature looked at Lily with an expression of quiet longing, its tail gently flicking back and forth. It moved toward her, but as it came closer, Lily saw something that made her heart twist. A small, thorny vine wrapped tightly around its leg, trapping it in place. The fox whimpered softly, its eyes pleading for help. Lily felt a pang of sympathy. She knelt beside the fox, carefully examining the vine. It was thick and sharp, its thorns digging deep into the creature's fur. She could see that it was hurting, and it was clear that the creature needed her help. But as she reached for the vine, a voice rang out in her mind. Are you willing to sacrifice your own safety to save another? For a moment, Lily hesitated. The vine was sharp and dangerous. Removing it could hurt her too. Yet, she knew what she had to do. With a steady breath, she reached out and carefully began to unwind the vine from the fox's leg. The creature flinched at first, but as Lily worked, it became calmer, nuzzling her gently in gratitude. With one final pull, the vine was free. The fox stood up, its leg no longer bound, and it looked at Lily with eyes full of gratitude. It took a few tentative steps before sitting down at her feet, its tail wagging softly. You have proven your heart, Lily, the figure said, its voice filled with warmth. Selflessness and love are the purest forms of magic. Suddenly, the garden around them began to shift. The trees' branches seemed to glow brighter, and the ground beneath Lily's feet hummed with energy. The air grew thick with magic, and she felt the power of the garden surge through her. It was as if everything in the garden was awakening. Vines unfurled, flowers bloomed, and the very earth seemed to pulse with life. From the tree, a beam of soft, silvery light shot into the sky, and Lily felt the magic of the garden fill her. She was no longer just a visitor. She was a part of the garden itself. You have unlocked the garden's magic, the figure said, its voice now gentle and reassuring. With your heart pure and your actions selfless, you have proven yourself worthy. The Midnight Garden is yours to protect, to nurture, and to share with others. The magic will always be with you. Lily looked around, her heart swelling with joy. The garden, once silent and still, was now alive with color and sound. The creatures of the garden, foxes, birds, butterflies, moved freely, their laughter and songs filling the air. The stars above seemed to shine even brighter, reflecting the light of the garden below. But Lily knew her journey wasn't over. This was just the beginning. The garden had chosen her, and she had a new responsibility now, to protect it, to keep its magic alive, and to share its beauty with the world beyond. With one last look at the magnificent tree, Lily turned to leave, but not without one final promise to herself and the garden. I will return, she whispered. Whenever the garden needs me, I will come back. The garden shimmered in the moonlight as Lily walked away, the path behind her slowly closing, as if it was waiting for her to come again. She knew that her adventure had only just begun, that the Midnight Garden would always be a part of her, and that she had a new role to play in the magic of the world. As she stepped into the world beyond, she felt the weight of the garden's magic within her, guiding her, and she smiled, knowing that the garden would always be waiting, ready for the next soul who dared to step into its midnight embrace.